Hey everyone, how's it going? This is the Infatuasian podcast. It's a show where we aim to illuminate and celebrate Asian culture and creators. Thank you for joining us today. I've long wanted to have an episode that focused on the Japanese American internment during World War II, but it's getting harder and harder to find people with firsthand knowledge of the camps. But then a suggestion was made to me to talk to Dr. Satsuki Ina. She has a really unique experience. She herself is in her 80s, and her parents were brought to the internment camps in the 1940s. Her parents happened to be born in America, in San Francisco, in fact, and they had spent a lot of their life here, but also a good 10 to 15 years back in Japan as younger folks. So they are of this generation they call Kibe, which are folks that are born in America, but who grew up in Japan, but then came back to America. And then they got married in their 20s in San Francisco. And then Pearl Harbor happened, and they got taken to the camps. And then they had two children in the camps, and one of them was Dr. Satsuki Ina. And so Dr. Ina was born in the internment camps in 1944. So she herself is an internment camp survivor. But to add to that, Dr. Ina found her mom's journals from that time, and they are great. And she also found stacks of letters that Dr. Ina's mom and dad wrote to each other, and they're really, really sweet, but also very telling of the history there. And so she's put them together in a book that came out earlier this year, and it's called The Poet and the Silk Girl. It is fantastic. It's really amazing. I loved it. I really, really enjoyed it. So if you have any interest in this era, and you know me, if I find someone who grew up in San Francisco, I'm going to want to talk to them. But this book is so great, and it tells a little bit about the Bay Area connection to the internment camps. But it's first person because it's a journal, and it's so great because it's harder and harder to find people who survived it. But Dr. Ina survived it as well as her mom's journals. It is my pleasure to bring our conversation with Dr. Satsuki Ina right after this. And it is my immense pleasure to welcome to the show Dr. Satsuki Ina. Welcome to the show.
Thank you, Curtis.
It's a pleasure to have you here. Where are you calling in from today?
I live in Albany, California, just next door to Berkeley.
Yeah, okay. So we're still in the Bay Area.
Yeah.
I love that. Actually, I love that about your book is, because I grew up in San Francisco.
Yeah.
And so anytime you mention a street or an area in San Francisco, I loved reading about that. So let's do a little, we'll talk about your book in a second, but let's do a little bit about you. So we'll talk about where you were born later, because that's really interesting. But
it's part of the book, right?
Yeah. But where did you end up growing up? I know you went to Ohio for a little bit, and then where did you grow up?
Yeah, I grew up mostly in San Francisco.
Okay.
Town before redevelopment, of course. Post-war, we went there. When we left camp, we went to Ohio to kind of recover from the trauma, and we weren't welcome back on the West Coast for a while after the war. So, but eventually came back to San Francisco, and my brothers and I grew up there.
Yeah. Where did you go to high school?
George Washington. How about you?
Yeah. So I went to Lowell, and then I'm a teacher at Galileo. So I'm at Galileo right now.
Oh, wow. That's great.
It's interesting reading your book, especially your preface. I realized that we overlap quite a bit, meaning that my grandmother was born in San Francisco in 1910, so a little bit before your parents.
Yeah.
And then my mom was born in San Francisco in 1940, so a little before you. And then I was born in 1971, and I think your sons were born in the 70s, right? So,
right.
So whenever I saw these these things, these events happening, I couldn't help but think about my parents. Now I'm of Chinese descent, so my folks grew up in Chinatown. But I can only imagine what it was like. My mom recalls, hearing the air raid sirens and having to get under her desks as
Mhm.
a kindergartner. And so I can only imagine, even though our lives were parallel, the experiences were so different for Chinese Americans and Japanese Americans,
Yeah,
growing up.
and both communities, victims of, government, prejudice and bias and racism, yes.
Yeah, I mean, as much as we'd like to say, "Oh, that would never happen again," I mean, here we are, right? So
Right, here we are, absolutely.
yeah, so we'll talk about that. Another fun fact is my grandfather, again, a little bit older than your parents, but he was in charge of the Chinese pavilion at the World's Fair in 1939.
Oh, wow.
So your mom and my grandfather might have, taken a ferry over together, or
Right, right.
they definitely might have crossed paths. And funnily enough, my mom went to Washington High School.
Oh, wow, okay.
So she's 4 years older than you, though, so I don't think you overlap, but who knows, maybe riding on the 38 Geary,
Yes, 38 Geary, that's right.
you might have seen each other. So, yeah, it's interesting how, when you grow up in the city, it's a pretty small place. A lot of people don't realize how small San Francisco is, so I'm pretty sure somewhere along the line,
Somewhere.
the Inas and the Chins cross paths somewhere.
Yeah, we
But,
used to go to Chinatown regularly looking for Chinese meal on a Sunday afternoon.
My grandfather had a restaurant called Lamps of China on Grand Ave, so
Oh my god.
there's a strong chance
Yeah,
our ancestors, or even you and my mom, might have crossed paths.
sure.
So it's really interesting. Okay, so a little bit more about you. You're a trained psychotherapist,
Mhm.
and I think I read that you spent half your life not doing community trauma, but the last 20 years of your career have been more around community trauma. What sort of work are you doing in the last 20 years?
Well, I had a private practice for many years. I was also teaching full-time at Cal State's
Mm,
Sacramento.
mhm,
Um, but I think what happened was over time, I was so aware of how the stories that people brought to me to unravel and, you know, inquire about and heal from, there was a repetition of, this experience of, being victims of racism, and the resulting self-esteem issues and, even intergenerational conflict that,
mm,
so evident. And, so I decided that rather than just working with one family or one individual at a time, that it was a time in my own life to transition to work at a more macro level.
mm,
And uh, and by then, some community organizations, like recent refugees, like the Hmong community in Sacramento,
yeah,
Latinx community in Sacramento, we're looking for advice, recommendation, for dealing with the community trauma, the, acculturation trauma for the Hmong community,
mhm,
uh, dealing with, family conflicts, in communities that were kind of repetitions of themes. So I found myself drifting more and more to working at that larger community level.
mm,
And of course, then that, then led me to realize how important it was to not just do post trauma, but to become an activist and to really work towards um, increasing awareness in the communities about how the racism trauma had impacted them, but also to stop what was being done and
yeah.
bring younger people in and us elders
Mhm,
to do
mhm,
what we can to stop what was happening in our world. You know,
yeah,
since about 2019.
yeah. Now, when you were growing up, I mean, maybe now it might seem obvious now, but when you were growing up, did you feel like your family had trauma or that you had intergenerational trauma as you were just growing up as a teenager in San Francisco?
No, I did not, but when I reflect on it, I can see the ways in which it had impacted me, but during that time, I think for the Japanese Americans post, concentration camp experience, there was such a push to, assimilate, to melt into the, dominant culture and identify with the dominant culture as the most important strategy for survival.
Mhm.
So, yeah, it took many years for me to really realize what we what the milieu of trauma that we were raised in.
Mhm. I mean, it may be a subtle thing, but I found it a little bit endearing and heartbreaking at the same time that you spent 30 years of your life being a Sandy or a Sandra,
That's right.
and you didn't even really go by Satsuki until you were a full adult and, got a PhD and all that stuff.
Right. Yeah,
And
and
your mom doesn't to this day, until she died, never really embraced calling you Satsuki.
she it because they lived with so much anxiety, about the possibility that we could be, uh, reincarcerated since there was nothing that they did wrong.
Mhm.
There was no guideline about, how to be safe, and so the safety net was broad and deep, I think ways in which we, their children, protected them by becoming more Westernized, Americanized, more white, proximity.
Yeah.
So, um, I think taking those defenses away and saying, I want my real name back,"
Yeah.
frightened her.
Yeah.
Yeah,
You told that story in the book as well about how you found out that you're a Cal Bear over over in Berkeley, and that was the turbulent times of the '60s, and your mom had to pull you aside and said, "Hey, come home, we gotta tell you something."
right,
And you didn't even know that that had happened, that your parents had renounced their American citizenship for about 13 years.
right. It was a family secret, and
Mm,
family secrets have an impact on family relationships.
mhm.
And so that was, one of the early beginnings of my realization that we were still living under the trauma of our forced removal uh, and all the losses that were incurred during that time.
Yeah. She was genuinely scared that if you protested, you could be thrown in jail and, all these things.
Right.
Wow. Wow. All right. Well, let's take a step back to maybe happier times. Where were your folks from, and how did they end up in San Francisco?
So both of my parents are American citizens. My father was born in San Francisco.
Uh-huh. Uh-huh.
His dad immigrated from Yamanashi Ken, in part of not far from Tokyo,
Mhm.
um, and came to the U.S. as an immigrant, and then sent for a picture bride from his same community. And uh, my grandfather was worked with the Japanese American community newspaper. I'm not
Okay.
sure. I think he was a tile setter, a typesetter,
Uh-huh.
actually. And So they had 2 children, and, when the second so my father was the eldest, and, when his, younger sister was born, she was very frail and ill, and
Mm,
they decided that, it was too stressful for them to stay in the US with no family support.
mm,
So my grandmother took my father and his younger sister back to Japan, for a period of time.
mhm, mhm. And, actually, I'd never heard that term before, kibe.
Right.
So, Issei is someone who's a first-gen immigrant, and then
Mhm.
Nisei is someone who's a son or daughter of an immigrant. But kibe, what does that term mean?
A kibe is, a Nisei, a second generation born in the USA, who was sent back for various reasons, often health or poverty, sent back to Japan, and then for whatever reason, either stayed or came back. So kibe means return to America.
Mm, mhm,
So both of my parents were kibe, so they were, uh, partly educated in Japan. They were
mhm.
bilingual, but definitely identified as Americans.
Yeah, but really, really bilingual and, like, immersive.
Yeah, and that was, a red flag, when they were going to be incarcerated. Anybody who was a
Yeah.
Kibe was considered a high risk for,
Yeah.
sabotage or
Right.
disloyalty.
And that was another part of the quote unquote problem was like we didn't even have the term Japanese American back then, right? So
Right.
if you asked them, they would if you said what nationality are you, would they say American or would they say Japanese?
They would probably say Japanese.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. All right, so they were living in San Francisco, just married. It's kind of cute. Some of the early journal entries. I just want to say, I am so glad that you have those journal entries of your mom, and they're nothing fancy. It's super mundane.
Mm.
Some of the stuff in there, but it's a real treasure, don't you think? That I mean, I think so many people wish, like I wish I had that from my grandmother. I almost don't know any of her thoughts.
Right. It was a real gift to discover that and, hunt through the house to find the
Hmm.
bits and pieces, diary was here or letter exchange was here,
Yeah.
and, it has been a real gift because one of the things that I came away with is how much they loved us,
Yeah.
you know?
Yeah.
We don't know that. I mean, we assume they love us, but to have it in writing and
Yeah.
and leading to decisions they made based on how precious we were to them was
Yeah.
very, very important to me.
So how did this happen? So it was after they passed that you found these?
It was after my father passed away, my mother and I were, cleaning out his big desk and, pulled out from the bottom drawer way in the back, was a packet of letters that were wrapped with string, and she was standing next to me, and I said, "Wow, look at what are these?" And she looked at it and she said, "Oh, I didn't know daddy had saved my letters because it was her handwriting."
Yeah.
And, yeah, and I was, like, shocked because they never said that they had saved their letters, and she said,
Yeah.
"Somewhere around here are the letters that he sent to me." And, but the telling point was I handed her these letters, and I thought she, you know, I don't know, I anticipated that she would be excited or moved by it, and she looked at them, she didn't unpack, she didn't take the string off of them, she just handed it back to me. Almost
Hmm.
like it was too painful
Yeah.
she didn't wanna relive it,
Mhm.
but the next day, I found packets of the letter that my father had sent to her, so they had each
Yeah.
saved, and they didn't know the other had saved their letters.
Now how much Japanese can you read?
Um, Very little, like
Okay.
primary, maybe kindergarten or 1st grade.
Okay, okay. Yeah, like a lot of us American-born kids.
Well,
Um
and I think part of it is the racism, the pressure
Mhm.
to, you know, to assimilate and not
Yeah.
look like you were, fresh off the boat.
Especially your generation, my generation, yeah. So this is in the 80s, late 80s, 90s? When did you find these letters?
I found the letters in the '80s.
Okay.
Wait, let's see, 62 to 60 I was in college. So, in the '60s,
Oh, wow.
yeah.
But you couldn't read most of it, yeah?
So I carried them around with me for years.
Oh, wow.
Part of it, I think, is just the psychology of it was what would I open up and discover
Yeah.
I wasn't ready for, so I carried them in boxes in all the different places that I went.
So what made you finally wanna translate them?
Let me see, I think the time was right when I found the right interpreter.
Uh-huh.
I was teaching graduate students in psychology at Sac State and,
Mhm.
had a wonderful Japanese student from Japan who was very psychologically minded and very, attuned and could read
Mhm.
Japanese.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, you know, w we did a couple of test runs, and she was perfect. She was
Yeah.
absolutely perfect. She could pick up the nuances and the implications of, messages that were being conveyed in Japanese.
Yeah. And then from that point on, was it just tears every night? Every time you translated another letter, was it just super emotional for you, or how
Well,
did you
yeah,
approach it?
no, it wasn't,
Huh.
at the beginning because, I think I was really guarded about what I was hearing, and she would sit next to me and do this magic thing where she would open up the envelope and take out the letter and just start reading in English so that I could type on the word processor. Did not have
Okay.
a computer at that time. Um, and, uh, and early on, I didn't realize it, but as she was reading to me, I would type away, and then one day she was stammering, and I looked over and she was crying,
Mm.
and, I had this amazing response. I grabbed her arm and I said, "Eco, you cannot cry. How am I gonna get through this if you cry?" And, that kind of released something in me, and,
Mm.
then then I tried to go back to work, and then it was one of my father's poems,
Yeah.
that we were typing, and it said, "Right now, the autumn leaves are falling across my window." And she and I looked over at my window in my office, and these autumn leaves were falling, and we both just started sobbing.
Yeah.
Yeah, that kinda opened the door to let in the emotions
Yeah.
that I think unconsciously I wasn't
Yeah.
know how much I could hold in that.
Yeah. Yeah. And everyone out there, you can read these for yourself in The Poet and the Silk Girl. It's amazing. It published in September, available everywhere now. And we got to get these into schools. I really want to get a set for our school because even if we only read part of it, it's just really firsthand account of what it was like in these camps. Yeah, so really amazing. When you were reading this, did these people feel like strangers to you? Because I think your lived experience was a lot different than what you were reading, yeah?
Right, because, these included sort of different access, but when I told my family that I was gonna start that I was starting this translation project, if they had anything, that they thought belonged to my parents. And my nephew said when he was given my father's stamp collection, that inside the stamp collection, there were a packet of letters, and it turned out those letters were love letters, and they just met
Yeah,
before they got married.
yeah.
So and that was, like, very to hear their youthful voices being crazy in love,
Yeah,
was very sweet and very, tender, for me to read because, uh, my familiarity conscious, uh, being old enough to be able to remember what they were like with each other was really different. Yeah.
sure, yeah, I can imagine. Yeah, they're so cute. I like to go fishing too, and that part where your mom was like, "Oh, he's going fishing again." I cried so hard. That's cute. Yeah, it was really cute, and it was fascinating. Like, let's get to Executive Order 9066, but it just was fascinating. It wasn't matter of fact, but it wasn't total fear that this was coming. Like, there was a little bit of a buildup, right? So Pearl
Right.
Harbor happens, and then it's a couple months go by. Then Executive Order 9066 that says anyone Japanese ancestry on the West Coast. But there's so much unknown, right? So your parents had no idea what was coming.
Exactly. Yeah, and, they believed that their American citizenship would
Right.
distinguish them from the enemy, and so
Right.
early on, they were feeling a lot of concern for the essays that they knew that were being taken.
Yeah.
So I think it came as a really deep, disturbing shock to them that this meant them. Uh,
Yeah.
yeah,
Like, your mom just has entries, "Oh, we had dinner with some friends tonight," and it was, like, 2 days before they were, quote, unquote, "evacuated," right?
right.
Like,
Yeah,
and just yeah, and then, I can only imagine. Like, I have 2 daughters. I can only imagine your mom was, like, 3 just found out she's pregnant, right
right.
as Pearl Harbor's happening probably. She
Yeah,
just finds out she's pregnant with your brother, and then they're gonna be removed and so much unknown. I can only
yeah.
imagine.
have no idea where they're going, how long.
Yeah.
I don't think anyone ever imagined. So my parents were incarcerated for 4.5 years,
Yeah.
taken from their home.
Yeah.
So yeah,
Yeah.
that 4.5-year journey would have been lost if they didn't save their diary entries, their haiku poetry, and the letters
Right.
that they exchanged when they were separated.
Yeah, I mean, I've seen a little bit and read a little bit about that experience, but your parents' experience was different too in so many ways. As newlyweds, new
Right.
parents, your experience as being born in the camp is different than other people's, and it's just so great that we have this because, honestly, do you know how many folks are still around from like your parents' generation are probably almost all gone.
There are a few, um
They'd be in their 90s or hundreds by
yeah,
now, yeah.
right. Yeah,
But then
they're passing quickly
but you
now.
kids you kids are around at least, yeah.
Yeah,
Okay, so another Bay Area connection, you got your family got moved to Tanforan, and anyone in the Bay Area, if you're near San Bruno, go to the back of the mall, and there's a little memorial there with, was it 7,984 names back there, um, which is crazy to think about because I work at a high school and we have about 2,000 kids. I'm trying to imagine, 7,000, almost 8,000 kids or families just lined up and just with whether they get one trunk or like two suitcases.
yeah, very limited and very clearly identified on those posters on the walls all
Yeah,
hung up all through Japantown, of what they could and could not bring, and
yeah,
because they had been recently married, they had a stockpile of wedding gifts that they had to put in storage that eventually got broken into and stolen all their things, so
yeah,
they essentially had nothing when they came out.
yeah. I mean, I've heard maybe one or two stories about neighbors helping the Japanese, but I think those are more rare. I think your parents' story is a lot more common where they
Yes,
lost everything basically.
they
Yeah,
sure did, yeah.
yeah. So a pregnant woman and their like 27-year-old pregnant woman and a 30-year-old man newlyweds get sent, and they ended up at Topaz in Utah,
Right.
which sounds
You're a
terrible.
good student, Curtis,
I try,
you have
I
really
try,
read
yeah.
my book.
Well, I was, I wanted to read it fast because I knew we were gonna speak
Yeah.
in January, but I couldn't. I wanted to read fast, but I got stuck on all the details because it's fascinating.
Oh, that's so wonderful, thank
And
you.
yeah, it's just so yeah, Topaz. I looked it up on Google Maps. There's still not much out there, middle of
Whoa,
nowhere, because probably no one wants to live in that dust bowl of a of an
exactly,
area.
yeah.
And so your your brother was born like a few months later,
Mm,
and so your mom and dad were taking care of a newborn.
yes.
And what's your impression of like? I think we see some of the details, but what is your impression of the early days of camp?
I think you mean their lives or their internal process?
Yeah, either. Yeah, whatever you
Yeah,
want to share. Yeah.
yeah, I think, they tried to make the best of this situation, like,
Right.
in my mother's diary, she writes, she made curtains, and later on she told me she made curtains out of an old skirt that
Uh
she had
huh.
taken with her, and then she says, "It feels more like a place where humans live." Uh,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
and in Tanforan, of course, they were in horse stables, so,
Yeah.
uh,
Yeah.
going to Topaz was an improvement, but also very harsh weather they weren't prepared for.
Yeah.
And, she was very sickly at Tanforan, and even after the birth of my brother,
Mm,
uh, she she reported, you know, not feeling well, and, I think some of it certainly was depression, but
mm-hmm.
I think what was really it's like 2 tracks. One track was, "We gotta make the best of this situation," so they're trying to cheer each other up, they're trying to they're protective of their new baby, and then on the other side, it's like every day the revealing of, the extreme deprivation that they were experiencing. When she had me, she felt like she didn't have enough milk.
Mm,
She the food was not good. Yeah, and the one thing she wrote in there, when they got to Topaz was that she got 2 servings of food, which was against the rules, but that she was hungry, and
Yeah.
she was nourishing the baby inside of her,
Yeah.
so, you know, I
Mm,
think I don't think you realize you're suffering in a traumatic situation, because you're going minute to minute, day to day,
yeah.
but stepping back and reading her whole story, it was
Mhm.
like it's remarkable the grit and determination, mostly inspired by being parents.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah, I think so. I read that too when as I read it, I felt that we have to survive. We have
yes,
to,
that's right.
we're gonna make the most of it. And I think the first couple years just reading it or from what I've heard, things were holding together. There were schools, there were movies, there were jobs, people could do little jobs for $1 a day or something
Right,
terrible
exactly.
like that. But I think things turned, right, when we had this questionnaire, or I think it's officially called the application for leave clearance,
Right,
the famous well, it's nicknamed now the loyalty questionnaire. And there's 2 questions there. If everyone hasn't studied this at all, if you take Asian American Studies class, you study this. Question 27, which is, are you willing to serve in the U.S. Army? Mostly for the men. And then 28 is, do you swear unqualified allegiance to the United States of America and faithfully defend the United States from any and all attacks by foreign and domestic forces, and forswear any form of allegiance or disobedience to the Japanese emperor or any other foreign government, power, or organization? So these are the famous questions that I think in the book, as I read it, I felt like this is a turning point. Yeah, when
yeah.
this questionnaire came out, and there's these the people that put no to both of these are called no-nos, or what were they called? Anything than that?
Yeah, they were called no-nos, no-no boys.
Yeah. So the boys would go to jail, right? If you were a young man and you put no, you would go to Department of Justice, or what happened if you said
Yeah,
no?
well, it wasn't consistent, but, if you were no-no, you were likely, and most of us were then, taken from, uh, the other camps and, put in at the Tule Lake,
Yeah.
segregation camp, which was, at first one of the ordinary, 10, War Relocation Authority prison camps, but, Tule Lake became the segregation center and uh, probably the most guarded, the most, restrictive, uh,
Mm,
prison camp for those who were now if you were no-no, you were considered disloyal to America.
yeah. Troublemaker.
And troublemakers, absolutely.
Yeah. What an impossible situation. I think, in your book you said you're glad you never had to make that decision. And it's a little different for probably your son's generation, because America's the only country we've ever known. But if you were a Kibe or Issei, or even a Nisei at that time, how can you be loyal to a country that threw you in jail?
Right.
And how can you want to fight against a country that you consider home?
Yeah, and some people felt that that was how they could prove their loyalty.
Right.
My parents were young parents, and, uh, and they were partly educated in Japan. They had some
Mhm.
connection to Japan.
Sure. Yeah.
So, they're not that they had any connection with the Japanese,
Right.
emperor or the government there,
Right.
uh, and that's what is so tragic about what happened is that this was a manipulation by the
Mm,
government, in their effort to just be rid of a particular group of people of color, and that anybody that was a dissident that protested, which is part of an American citizen's constitutional right,
of
to
course. Yeah.
protest, that they were then stigmatized and, labeled, traitors and disloyal. And the sad part of that is that the rest of the prisoners in the camp, many of them, internalized the perpetrators' uh, conceptualization of those who said no.
Yeah.
Uh, and so even within the camps, those who said yes looked at the no-nos as, that they were the troublemakers, that they were causing,
Mm,
extension of their incarceration because they showed up as disloyal.
yeah. Yeah. No, I felt that though, and it just felt like such an impossible situation.
Yes.
Also, I mean, we have the history on our side, so we know who won the war, right? But at the time, yeah, no, like the information they were getting was so veiled, or if they got it from Radio Japan or they got it from America, like the propaganda on both sides was really strong.
That's right. Yeah. The
So you got to pick a side, and you don't know which side is going to win.
and, and this is why their letters and their diaries and poetry was so important as part of this story that I could never have written. I could never
Hmm.
have written that book without
Sure.
learning and their words, um,
Yeah.
that not only, as American citizens, they were betrayed, but mostly that they felt there was no future for their children, that
Yeah.
they could never be safe,
Right.
and that at least they could go back where they had some family, uh,
Yeah.
and of course, that hope was crushed when Japan lost the war.
Hmm. Yeah. And it's interesting when you know the history. So we know who's going to win the war. We know there's an atomic bomb, but it's just coming, and you're just reading it. Okay, you're like January 1945, February 1945, and you're just
Right,
waiting, and then the day goes by, and then nothing happens because you realize they didn't know.
they did it,
Their source
right.
of information, and they're just kind of hoping Japan would still win, and there were still holdouts that even after the atomic bomb, that Japan would still find a way to win, and it just ah. And then so that created this even further situation that I think if your parents had put yes, yes, they might have even been able to be released
Sooner,
a lot earlier,
absolutely.
right?
Yeah, yeah,
And even worse was when your parents got separated. They took the men, and I don't even see the point of this, to be honest. I guess the paranoia, or when the government knows they made a mistake, they gotta triple down on it or
yeah,
something, but they're censoring letters. I didn't get any of that, to be honest, like
and then I think that, when a person answered "no, no," uh, it was like the government's it was clear that the government's strategy was to get rid of them, to send them all back to Japan if they could,
mhm,
and, so 2 things, I think 2 sides to look at is, one is the government, uh, as if this was a choice of their own, that they could, renounce their American citizenship
mhm,
and and then go back to Japan. Essentially what happened was that they were coerced,
yeah,
given the situation, to give up their American citizenship, uh, and hoping to go back to Japan as a way that their children could survive.
mhm,
And on the other side, from inside of my parents' dialogue and their, expression was, um, this rising anger,
yeah,
this, like, this I cannot believe that this is really happening to us,
yeah,
and, their, dissidence, uh, is excavated, and now they are taking actual steps and urging others, to do um, what is in their best interest. Um, so I think that loyalty questionnaire really sparked the, um, the outrage, you know? Before it was like, "Yeah, we're outraged and this is unbelievable, but, we're American citizens. This'll be okay. We'll get through it." Uh,
yeah,
but
yeah.
yeah, their answer, "No, no," set them up for even more disastrous circumstances.
Yeah, no, no, and then renouncing your American citizenship, and then other moves here and there.
Yeah.
We'll leave the ending up for people to read the book, but spoiler alert: it ends up okay, but there's a journey. It's a long, and a couple things had to happen, and then a couple kind of almost, I don't want to say miraculous, but a couple things have to happen for this to turn out okay. But yeah. So what you said your earliest memory is riding back from Texas with your dad, who was separated from you guys for 6 months. How long was he
For,
separated?
almost 2 years.
Oh, really? That long?
S
Oh.
I think it was, maybe 18 months.
Oh, okay. So
Yeah,
you were born and then you never knew your dad until that train ride in 1946,
yeah.
which if those of you out there know your history, the war had been over for like
That's right.
6 to 8 months already, and we still had camps open, which is crazy to think about.
Yeah.
And so yeah, so that is your parents' story, and it's fascinating. You even have these fabric inserts in the pants that were being sent back and forth that had secret messages on them. It's really just fascinating. What what's your biggest takeaway? What was the biggest thing you learned in this project for you, in this writing this book and translating these letters?
Yeah, I think, it really sparked my own deep-seated outrage,
Mhm.
I felt like I needed to, in my lifetime as much as I could, s tell the story as a way of a protest, against what's happening today. People taken off the streets,
Yeah.
forced family separations, all of the things that our community suffered, and having that, being reactivated, um, I wanted to I wanted to organize other Japanese Americans to use their voice. We had been so, coerced into being compliant and, not be the nail that sticks up and
Mhm.
be good, so that, we're not punished again. So I think there is now, not because of me necessarily, but more concern and awareness that Japanese American voices are really crucial to what's happening today to stop the racist, fascist government practices and policies that are harming children again.
Yeah.
They're going to be traumatized and dealing with intergenerational trauma for the next several generations. So, yeah, my biggest takeaway is that our story is so important. Our story needs to
Mhm.
be told as a form of activism and protest.
Absolutely. And as Asian Americans, if you think this isn't going to happen to you, like every war the US has been involved with since World War II has been in Asia somehow, and
Right.
it happened to to the Korean, the Vietnamese, Cambodian, Middle East during 9/11, and now, even this war against COVID, right? The Chinese were the enemies in this.
Exactly.
It just keeps coming up, and if you think it's not gonna happen to you, you know, unfortunately, we haven't come full circle yet. We haven't totally made the gains that we would think you would in 80 years.
Yeah.
Yeah. So what's some of the current work that you're doing? I saw in Trump's first term, you were doing some work on the border.
Yeah. I was working with the ACLU to go in kind of undercover as a religious uh, volunteer. Those were the only people that were allowed inside of these detention facilities in South Texas. And they wanted me to go in with a group of other religious, like priests and nuns and other volunteers, to get an assessment of what's happening to the children. So, um, what I witnessed was shocking and disturbing. Yeah, there were, cribs inside of jail cells, and there were um, mothers reported that they put black pepper all over the food. And when they challenged that and asked why they had to do that, uh, the um, the guards there said, "This is so that you'll tell your families not to come here." Uh, yeah, and children were, clinging to their mothers during our visitations because they're so full of anxiety and fear. Um, yeah, it's really heartbreaking.
So probably when you were getting a little older in your practice, you were thinking, "Oh, I'll retire soon," but look at you. You're
Right.
still on the front lines.
Yeah, I'll be 82 and I'm just starting my next book,
Okay.
which is a collection of my father's prison camp haiku. Yeah.
Oh, that'll be great.
Yeah, I'm ready to work on that.
Yeah. No, I'm glad you're sharing that with the world. That's gonna be great. So, audience out there, get a copy of The Poet and the Silk Girl. We alluded to the World's Fair a little bit. The Silk Girl moniker comes from the World's Fair, so you can read the preface about that. But hey, we usually end our interview with our signature question, which is we ask our guests to choose an infatuation. An infatuation is anyone in the Asian community that you admire, could be living or deceased. So Dr. Satsuki Ina, who is your infatuation?
I've thought about this question, and it would be my mother.
Yeah.
Yeah, the letters revealed more about her than I appreciated when I was a kid.
Yeah.
And if I have a non-Asian
Sure.
infatuation, it's Rachel Maddow.
Yeah, you got
Yeah,
interviewed by her.
she's very real and very sincere about sharing our story. It's been powerful.
That's cool. Yeah, you can listen to that podcast as well, everyone out there. Yeah, no, I like your mom too. I love your mom too. She's quiet and humble, but there was a fierceness at the end. At the end there was definitely a fierceness, a protective mother fierceness to her.
Yes, right,
Yeah, she was like, "We gotta do something for our kids."
right.
Because you guys, you had no connection to Japan other than your name and your face, but, she was really, really worried about going to Japan,
Yeah, and
and
she led the outcome.
yeah, and, she always kinda deferred to your dad, but at the end there, she's like, "No,
Yeah, right,
we're doing this."
right, right.
I love that. I
Me
love that
too.
about her, yeah, so she's great. Yeah, so it's kinda interesting, right? Like, I think you said early in your life, you didn't totally understand her. Do you feel like you understand her so much better now? Like,
Oh, so much better, so
yeah,
much better.
yeah,
Yeah,
we should all be so lucky.
yeah, and really grateful that, both my parents saved everything they had, and, they got moved from camp to camp, but they still managed somehow, uh, to save them in a way that, allowed me to know them and share their story. Yeah.
Yeah. What do you think they would say if they found out that you published all their intimate love letters and journals? What do you think they would say? Would they be happy?
Well, I don't know happy, but, I made a film about it, and she was still alive at that time, and I asked
Oh.
her permission, and she said, "It's embarrassing, but for the sake of the children, kodomo no tame ni," she said. Uh,
Mm,
yes, she would give her permission, so,
yeah.
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 My father would have said, "Ask your mom."
Okay, so he deferred some decisions to
Yeah,
her.
right, right.
Okay. Great, great. So I'm so glad we have this. I'm so glad you wrote this. Thank you so much for coming on the show and even more for writing this book and sharing your parents with us.
Thank you, Curtis, thank you so much.
Ah, of course. And everyone out there, I told you to get the book, but you could also follow Dr. Ina at Satsuki Ina on social media or at her website, which I'll put in the show notes. I like to end the show by telling people to be happy, healthy, and safe. But the last word I'm going to let you choose. So I'm going to say happy, healthy, and then you get to pick the third word. Are you ready?
Okay.
So, everyone out there, thank you so much for listening. You can write to us at Infatuasian Podcast at gmail.com. You can follow us on Instagram or Facebook at Infatuasian Podcast. And give us a rating on Spotify or Apple if you get a chance. So, again, thank you so much for listening to this episode. I hope you enjoyed it. On behalf of Dr. Ina and myself, we hope that you're all happy, healthy, and
Protesting.
yes, we'll talk to you soon. Thanks, everyone. Bye.
Bye-bye.